Good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H virtual event space. I always say it's a special treat because it is a special treat. I love my job. I love what I do. I love the guests we have on. I love all my viewers. This really is a special treat. Reggie B is here with us, Fujifilm ex-photographer, Instagram maven. And I don't use that term lightly.
I don't know if
Re-
I'd say that, but thank you, thank you.
I mean, you do your thing. Reggie, Reggie's one of those people that the very first time I interacted with him online, loved his content, loved his page. We both have sons that are around the same age,
Yep,
so it's
yep.
like the connection was there. I love everything he does. Today is going to be one of those days that you guys are going to want to take notes. So if you don't have a notepad, a piece of paper, a pizza box, something, grab something right now to take notes. I don't want to take too much of Reggie's time because I know he's got a lot of information, but he's cracked the code to Instagram. He's going to let you in on it. He's going to give you all the tips, tricks, information that you guys need. Reggie, welcome onto the virtual event space. Good to have you, man.
Thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm excited to share some Instagram gems with everyone. I can't say I'm an expert, but I think I'm pretty knowledgeable, and I wanted to share my experiences and kind of how I've adapted the space as a photographer to get some growth in this very, like everyone would say, it's a pretty frustrating algorithm right now. So,
Definitely. Well, I'll turn it over to you, man. It's your show.
all right. Cool, cool. So I'm going to share my screen and share the slides right now. Let me know if I'm coming in through there.
Yep, we got you.
Awesome. And I will have to say, like, I do have two kids. Like Derek said, I have a one his son's age and a younger one. So if they are screaming, I'll try my best to talk louder than they're screaming, but it might come through a little bit. But today I'm going to talk to you all about what I call the photographer's guide to Instagram in 2021. And this webinar is hosted, by B&H Event Space welcoming me, and also in collaboration with Fujifilm. So I just want to share just a little bit about me. So I am a official Fujifilm photographer, as like Derek said. I primarily shoot weddings, portraits, and events in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm also very passionate about education. I like to use the internet platform to do my education because I'm a father, so I can't really go out in the field and mentor people, especially with COVID and stuff like that. But I do like to create content on YouTube and Instagram, and that's how I kind of started to figure out all this stuff about Instagram because I tried to do something a little bit different, and I wanted to share all that with you today. It's gonna be a little of adjustment. It's gonna require some mindset change. But if you guys can stick with me, I think we can get some new life breathed into everyone's Instagram accounts, especially if you are a photographer. So just a little bit of kind of like information. So before, like most photographers on Instagram, I was really trying to keep it consistent, high quality images, have the cohesive feed. And I started trying to do something a little bit different in 2020 after reading this book called Zag by Marty Neumeier. And he basically said, if everyone's zigging, just zag. So do something completely different. And I wanted to use my Instagram as the experimental platform to do that. So I decided I'm going to share my entire process. I'm going to share all the cards up my sleeve. I'm going to share everything on my Instagram so that my clients and my followers will know what's going on. So I started creating what's called carousel posts. I started showing before and after edits, and I started actually teaching people the things that I do, the techniques that were secrets amongst my other competitors in the areas. I was sharing it with everyone. If it made them mad, I didn't really care because I figured if I leveled everyone up, I would also level up too. So I started sharing that type of content, and I kind of lucked into an opportunity by creating consistent content. I was able to be guest posted on this Instagrammer's account. He is a big kind of influencer in the graphic design space. His name is Chris Doe. And I submitted a guest post to him because he had an open call. And I was the first photographer to want to submit something because most of the content was graphic design. But he creates a lot of content, and lighting is very important when it comes to video and photography content. So I created this post called Find the Perfect Light Every Single Time. And that post caught fire. It got 26,000 likes on his account. He had about like 300,000 followers at the time. And it was like around May 14th, and I got, I think I want to say like 3 or 4 thousand followers in one single day. If you can imagine, my phone was blowing up, and it was crazy. So after that, I got a lot of momentum to keep creating content, usually mostly tutorial content on photography, technique, editing in Lightroom, and also a little bit of content creation tips here and there. And then I went down this rabbit hole of trying to kind of jumpstart things a little bit more. So I did this 100-day challenge on Instagram where I created a and shared content for 100 days straight. And during that project, I started on September 1st for 100 days, and I started around like 9,000 followers. And at the end of the 100 days, I jumped up to, I want to say like almost short of 20, so like 19,000. So I went up almost 10,000 in 100 days. So through that process, I also was introduced to Instagram Reels because I was scrambling to create posts consistently for that 100 days. And Instagram Reels was a 15-second video platform. I was like, hey, I'll just create some stuff on here to see how it goes. And that was where a lot of my growth skyrocketed. So now today, my account, in just like a year and a couple months, I went from 2,000 to 27,000. And 2020, everyone can agree, was a crappy year for the Instagram algorithm for the traditional photographers who just post photos. So if you're interested to see what I did, I'm going to share kind of all my tips, tricks, the code, everything. If you want to kind of join me in this new type of content creation when it comes to Instagram. So I'm gonna just give a little quick overview about like what we're gonna go over. So first, why Instagram? Why are you guys on Instagram? And what is really your goal? We're gonna talk a little bit about that because that's a big important thing to decide before you start sharing or creating anything. We'll talk about the content creation mindset and how it's different than the old school mindset of the original Instagram when it was first started. And then we're gonna talk about the hated algorithm. For me, I love the algorithm because I can understand it. So I'm going to hopefully get you to like it or maybe even love it too. Engagement and how all that works and how you can encourage it for your posts. And the big nitty gritty is all the different content formats, the best tips and tricks for creating different content formats and what you can expect. And then I'm going to end it with a kind of like this Instagram growth funnel, as I like to call it. And if we have some more time, I do want to give you some like really starting points on things you can do right now to jumpstart your Instagram. So first, I did want to pay a little respect to my sponsor. So I use Fujifilm gear to create all my content, all my professional photography stuff, aside from my iPhone and my GoPro. But my main bodies that I shoot with are the XT3, and I also use an XS10 and X100V for all my personal family documentation stuff. My favorite lenses are the 23mm f1.4, the 16mm 1.4, and that new 50mm 1.0. I know, Derek, you use that, so it's an amazing lens. So that one's been a favorite of mine as of recent, and I just have a little shot of all my gear laying out that I usually shoot for weddings. So yeah, that's kind of all the gear stuff, but let's get into really understanding what is your goal on Instagram. So I actually posted a story to my Instagram to understand what everyone's goal was. Don't worry, I blurred it out so you can't see anybody's names, but basically there are kind of like 4 main goals that people usually have. It's either to attract clients and leads for their business, whether they have a photography business or a different kind of business. And then also, some people just want to build community and inspire to kind of go down this artistic craft or this, craft of photography. And there's people like me who want to educate and provide value to those who follow them. And then there's a large amount of people who just want to post their work and expect to build an audience around their work. They just hope that's going to happen by sharing it. And as you can see, the breakdown, 72 people, that most of the people are professional photographers probably trying to find clients. But then the large majority after that is people just want to build an audience around their work. And I have to just tell you right now, that's probably the worst goal to have on Instagram today is just, I'm going to share my work and people are going to follow me. It doesn't happen. And I'm sorry to say, if that's what your goal is, most of the stuff here is not going to apply because what's really required is a new mindset shift around kind of Instagram as a platform. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But the first thing that I want to talk about is something that I really decided before I started creating educational content is finding your why. So why do you choose to create and share it on Instagram? And it really helps if your why is something bigger than making money. Like, I know it's really hard, even if you do have a business, if your business has a greater mission to kind of spread into the world, it helps because then you can create content that doesn't always have to generate revenue. So my personal why is I want to teach 1 million people to become photographers, for people to be able to see the world around them and, better light, better composition, all that stuff, and teaching even people with an iPhone to take better photos. That's my goal. But I think having a strong why is really important because it gives you a belief or a movement or a value for you to get behind and also for others to rally behind too. They're going to follow you to join the cause. It also helped you to keep moving the needle every day because it's something important that you believe in that, if you don't do the work, then, you're not really going to take that next step toward making that mission a reality. And then also it's a really good tipping point for any type of difficult decisions. If you have procrastination or perfectionism, you can use your why to kind of say, like, does this help this cause or not? Then you can do it or don't do it. It really just helps to keep things moving and not really get stuck too much. So the biggest thing that's required, though, in order to, once you figure out your why, is really just adopting a new mindset about Instagram. So the reality of Instagram in 2021 is that it is a social media platform. It is not an extension of your portfolio. I was telling Derek before the call started, if you went to a party and the host just said, I'm not going to talk to you, I'm just going to say, I don't like writing captions. Look at all the photos on the wall and just praise me, like me, and stay inside my house and party. I'm not going to do anything. Because that's what most photographers do. They just post their photos, expect people to flock to it because they use the cool hashtags, say, this is a caption. Some people write that as their caption. They don't really create any value or any type of conversation, and they don't build any relationships. They just make the cool looking account that looks like a portfolio. That is not how it works in 2021. Instagram is a social media platform, so that's discussion, communication, relationships, sharing of yourself, and being open to listening to what others want to say. That's all part of the social media platform. And the next big thing is video is the future of the platform. You have Reels, IGTV, Stories has video in it. As a photographer, there's a lot of big carryovers as far as, composition, lighting. So it's not a big jump for us to start adopting video, but there's a lot of people resistant and who just want to stick to stills. If that's your MO, like, Instagram is not really going to take much traction if you don't want to adopt some sort of video, even if it's just using your iPhone or Android phone to create a little bit of context around the photos that you create. And then the last reality is one of those things that a lot of people get a little upset about, is that more effort or better image quality does not equal more engagement and growth. You don't have to have the best quality images. You don't have to have the most groundbreaking images. You don't have to have the sharpest images. It is a highly compressed image platform and video platform, so you don't have to really try to make everything so perfect or so consistent. And I'll show you some photos of kind of my feed. My feed is all over the place. If you go to @ReggieBPhoto and just look at my Instagram, it's all over the place, but people are engaged, people follow me, and people find value. So there is a place in this new Instagram atmosphere where it doesn't have to be perfect. There's a few people that have like really perfect feeds that I'm going to share with you if you want to go down that route, but those users also adopt and implement the new types of features of Instagram in order to keep their accounts relevant. So the old mindset, again, really is, if I post my work, my best work, consistently, people will find it. And this is really, couldn't be further from the truth at this point. The new mindset that you really have to adopt is, if I share what I'm passionate about and it provides value to my specific audience in a way that's optimized for the platform, that is where I will find success and growth. And that's kind of what you have to frame it around. I know a lot of people are artists and they don't want to sacrifice their vision. And that's why I'm going to kind of share kind of like this Venn diagram of how to keep authenticity and your creative vision intact, but still allowing to connect with other people and also grow. because if you want to use Instagram as a tool to grow, you have to kind of adopt this mindset. It's the only way that it works. It's a tool, so you have to use it properly. You can't be frustrated that the tool doesn't operate in a way that it's not currently designed to anymore. It's not the chronological algorithm. It's not the first person to post, use the cool hashtags. It's going to get followers. Like it works in a different way. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but first we want to talk about the mindset. So first is we get down to kind of like you, right? So what do you enjoy? What are you passionate about? And what are you good at? These are the things that you want to focus on creating and sharing so that you can keep energized through your kind of like sharing journey and creating content and teaching other people. The next thing is your audience. So what is your audience looking for? What do they value? What do they struggle with? What are they aspiring to do? Or, what do they just pretty much just enjoy consuming or watching or viewing? Like that's something that you need to be in tune with in order to be successful. And then the last thing is the platform itself. Like we are on Instagram. So we kind of have to play by what it likes and its rules. And basically the real goal of Instagram is it wants to keep users on the platform. It wants to keep users engaged. And if you can fit the new features, it's promoting the new features. So if you can promote your types of content around the new features where it fits, that's where you're going to really find a lot of traction. So I did want to kind of talk about like if you find efforts in just two of them, that also causes problems. So if you just focus on just you connecting with your audience, you will be able to be well connected with a small group of people, but it's not going to grow really much past that. And you're going to have to be satisfied with that and you can't really be frustrated about not reaching new types of people. And then if you want to just be kind of like doing what you're passionate about and what's optimized for the platform, you'll create very well optimized content, but it's not going to resonate with a specific group of people, and that you'll have a hard time finding some consistent people to view it. And then the last one is really kind of like the most not recommended thing, and it's to be very in tune with the audience and be very in tune with the platform, but you're not in it. And that's your one-way ticket to burning out. So I really don't recommend that way. And then again, like what I said, like the sweet spot again is really just finding, sharing what you're passionate about that resonates with an audience, and also making it game for the platform. That's really the goal, and that's kind of what I figured out for my specific audience and what I like to do. And I'm going to show you some examples of kind of like what I do in a little bit. But at the end of the day, the main pillars of Instagram, the main kind of approaches that it really perpetuates and really like wants to encourage at this point is education, entertainment, inspiring other people, and also just relating, because a big human aspect is just belonging. People want a sense of community. People want someone that feels the same thing as they do. So if you share your experience, somebody might resonate with that, and then they're going to connect with you. But in general, you want to provide some type of value with the content that you are sharing. So again, it's a mindset shift. The old approach is the work, sharing the work, the final image, the product. It doesn't really work that way. And you're going to have a stunted growth if that's what you do. But the new approach really is going to be kind of like taking Instagram as a creative journal that's authored by you about your work. So documenting your process, your approach, all these types of things that go into creating that final product. You can still share the product, but sharing the other steps around it, sharing the intent behind it is very important, and what's going to help you connect with your audience and reach new people. So you want to think about things like teaching your clients, because if you teach your clients, you're going to be top of mind when they come up with that thing they actually have to buy, have to book, or to commission for some type of photographic work. And then you can also take the approach of teaching your peers, because then you're going to position yourself as an expert, because you're sharing value with those who can learn from you, and you're also going to be showing that you teach other professionals about the industry that you're in. So people like wedding clients that come to me, they have no doubt that I know how to do the job, because I'm already teaching thousands of people how to do the job that I do. And then also showing your process is a really easier thing to do if you don't want to be teaching other people. You don't want to quote unquote sacrifice your craft. Just share around how you think as a creative. and what your thoughts go into it, and then also show the behind the scenes of what you're doing. So you can really flex your skills by either showing a third person view or a first person view of your photographic execution and all that stuff. And that just adds a different layer without having to really change your workflow too much. I just use a GoPro on top of my camera, and that can add a whole different dimension than just showing the photo by itself. And I want to remind you, you do not have to sell out. You do not have to sacrifice your craft. You don't have to do things that you're not enjoying, because here are 4 accounts that I like to show other people like, oh, this doesn't really work. One really great example is Beware My Fuji. It's Tom. He's a fellow Fujifilm ex-creator. He's a street photographer, and he really does well with integrating Instagram Reels, video, carousel posts for his street photography, and he still has a consistent feed, everything. It's still very cohesive, and it follows kind of like what everyone's trying to do with their feed aesthetic, but he adopts the new features, and he's doing very well and growing very rapidly right now. And then there's also David Sa, who is, he's actually local here in California. He teaches his clients different types of posing and shows them how to be confident in portraits. And now he has people from all over the world flying to him to get their portraits taken. So it works. If you don't, and you can see his feed is not very consistent, but he's providing a lot of value to his prospective clients. And we have Iram D Photo. He's somebody that I collaborate with quite often. He posts a lot of different fashion, portrait, and also just kind of like meme posts about photography. So he gets a lot of different people within the fashion and photography world, and they congregate around his content because it's entertaining and it's also valuable. And he just has that kind of personality that's kind of easygoing, and it helps his prospective clients know and be comfortable once they finally work with him. And then here's another person is James Martin. He's not a photographer, but he is a graphic designer, and I think his Instagram is probably the prime example of somebody showing their creative process, from sketches, time lapses, compilations of different logos that he's put together. It works so well that I hired him to design my own logo. So check him out. He's a really cool guy, and he's very awesome about sharing his different aspects of his approach and his process. So the algorithm, this is everyone's favorite thing. This is everyone's like most feared and hated thing. It's actually pretty simple. If you kind of change your mindset, the more valuable content that you create and share, the more engagement that you will get, and thus you'll get more exposure. And it just kind of goes in a cycle from there. It's not really that complicated. If you post a banger photo, let's think about it. How much value does a banger photo actually give to someone following you? Maybe a double tap. That's it. So like, that's where I want you to kind of understand what you are actually showing or giving to somebody else. Maybe it'll make them happy for a second, but it's just, you want to kind of think about what else can I share about myself and my craft that provides more value than just sharing a pretty photo. That's where the platform is going. And that's where we're going to kind of discuss how to game different types of content formats to take your photography past just a single post photo. So basically, the algorithm can be summed up in a few different ways. So again, it's that engagement exposure cycle. The more engagement you get, the more exposure you get, and it's actually a ripple effect. If you can think about a pebble falling into a pond, it starts as a little tiny ripple, and it's going to test a small subset of your audience. That's why you have to really have an audience that resonates with your content, because it's going to test that first audience first. If you get good engagement, then it's going to try it with a larger subset of your audience. And if you get good engagement there, then it's going to share it to hashtags, the Explore tab. If it's a reel, it's going to put it on the Reel tab, all that stuff. So that's kind of how it works. So if you've noticed that like, oh, I don't get all my followers engaging because you haven't been really in tune with what your followers actually want to see, what's valuable to them. And if you're really kind of doing it kind of quote unquote the right way, the followers that you have, you actually want to serve and provide value to them back, either as your friends, as your clients, or as your peers. So it really takes some, discipline to kind of understand what they're looking for. And once you do that, you'll notice a lot better engagement because you'll be in tune with what they want. And the algorithm also just in general is promoting time on the platform. They want people to be on the platform. It's just kind of the unfortunate thing about it. And it's not only just a quote unquote issue with just Instagram. YouTube has the same thing. YouTube values watch time. So before you start hating on Instagram, like Instagram is the devil because they want us to be on the platform, every single social media wants the same thing. That's just how all of them work. And if you choose Instagram as your platform of choice, then you want to understand how to optimize people's time on your content. And the last thing is the algorithm will promote new features first and more often. And that is really Instagram Reels. And that's a big thing that propelled my growth. And it's a big thing that I think is very easy for photographers to implement if they can just understand kind of the format and how I've adopted my photography content to fit very well with Instagram Reels. So basically, these are the different areas of where your content is shown. So first, you have the home screen and the feed, and this is mainly to your followers, unless it is a guest post that someone else follows. And then you have the Explore tab, which is going to be for some of your followers, and then also for some non-followers. So that's where you can get some, non-follower growth. And then the Reels tab is a new one, which works similar as the Explore tab, but it is just mainly for Reels, and that's where you can have a lot of non-follower growth as well. And then you have the story shares and DM shares. So basically, whenever you've had a post sent to you or shared on someone's story that you saw and you kind of tapped in there, that is another way that content is shown. And then another thing too is hashtag pages, but it really depends on people if people are looking at the hashtag pages. So as far as engagement goes, we're going to kind of go through it. Basically, you have likes, comments, shares, and saves. And just the kind of the quick translation, a like is, oh, I like this photo, double tap, just keep scrolling. Not really that much engagement, not really that much parking, so to speak. So it's pretty low ranking on the algorithm. A comment is, something that either sparks a discussion or, they really want to put a comment in there. So, there's a little bit more time spent on there. And when somebody shares a post, this is where they really say like, hey, I would like someone else to see this. It's funny, it's valuable, it's useful, something. I want so bad to show this to somebody else who doesn't follow it or didn't see this yet or want to make sure they saw it. Because I'm always sharing like posts with my wife all the time, like, oh, this one's really funny, so I'll share it to her. You got to kind of think about what is your own behavior with sharing. And then saving is basically, this post is so valuable or so cool or so inspirational that I want to save it so I go back to it later. You may have been seeing posts floating around Instagram like, oh, everyone teach people that saves are the new like. I think this is the wrong mindset. Don't teach your audience to just save it by default. What you need to do is start learning how to create content that drives the behavior. So likes are pretty easy to do. Just make something that looks pretty, or something that's fun or inspiring, and you're going to get a like. With comments, you want to ask, you want to provide a interesting story or discussion and leave it open-ended with a question or a way for people to get involved. Sometimes I just say, hey, vote for your favorite photo, and that gets a lot of comments. So you want to think about how can you create your content so that it generates a comment at the end. And then shares are really something that's super valuable that you want to share around. So think about high value posts or very shareable, funny posts or inspirational posts that people want to share. That's how you get that to happen. And then saves, again, is something that like, wow, there's a lot of information here. I'm going to want to go back to it later. That's where saves comes in. And basically, they kind of rank them like kind of, this is how I personally rank them. I rank shares as first, saves as second, third is comments, and then likes is the last priority that I'm gunning for. It just kind of happens by nature. If you can get something to be really savable or shareable, for the most part, you're going to get a lot of likes too. And I say that shares are first because it has kind of like a double duty. It tells the algorithm push out this content, but it also has an organic part of it that you literally are just sharing it to someone else outside of your audience. So it's powerful in that sense. But when I'm really creating content, there are some very heavy, dense informational posts that I gun knowing like I hope a lot of people save it. And I'll even tell them at the end of my post, please save this for reference later. And people do. And that will tip off the algorithm too. You can't just say like, please save my post instead of liking it because that's how the algorithm works right now. Like, I think it's going to get a little old to your audience at some point. So I encourage you to wrap your head around how to actually create content that generates these types of engagements rather than brainwashing your audience to do something that they're not really trained to do quite yet. So now this is where we go into the deep dive of the content format. So there's different methods to connect and provide value. I don't want you to think, wow, there's too many things to do. That shouldn't be how you think about it. If you really want to provide value, if you really want to further your mission, these are different tools to engage with your audience, communicate your message, and provide value to reach out to different ways people learn, different ways that people differently consume things, or just how you want to differently express yourself, whether it's vocal, text, photos, video, all that stuff. So they're not chores; they're tools. So I want everyone to kind of think about it in that way. So the first kind of post that I want to talk about is like single image post. This is normally how people used to share like their banger photos, like the best photo, right? I don't use it in this way. The way that I use single image posts is, one, they're either inspirational. So I share a story about something I've overcome or whatever. I mean, you can see that this one here, I still get nervous before every shoot. And I talk about like what are my feelings and what is my kind of growth getting over that, and kind of opening up a discussion with people like, hey, do you get nervous too? Because I do. And don't worry about it. So that's kind of what it is. And it's also something that's very relatable. And these types of posts will usually generate a lot of likes and comments because it sparks a discussion. Another type of single image post that is kind of along these lines is a celebratory post. So I will post like when I hit a specific milestone for my follower count, because I'm trying to build my audience to reach that 1 million, right? And I also posted a celebration post when I became a official Fujifilm X creator, and that got like 325 comments. People were trying to congratulate me, and that's going to tip the algorithm, but people also just want to, congratulate you because they're your friends, they're your fans, they're their clients. So don't feel bad about kind of celebrating certain things so you can include everyone with you. That's kind of my mindset around that. It's not being like bragging, but it's I always say a thank you to my audience because they are actually who helped me to get to where I am. So that's how I use single image posts. If you're doing just photography work, what you want to do is really focus on the story behind the photo. So you want something that's very attractive, that's going to get people to look in, but you want to create a very enticing first sentence so that they tap the more button and read everything, and they're going to be prompted to either discuss something with you or leave a comment or whatever. Sometimes you can even just put an argument there so people can disagree with you. I actually posted one of those posts recently, and there's a lot of people who generated a lot of arguments on there, but it creates engagement. Just depends if you want to field those comments in your own communities. But the next type of single image post that I do is a dense value post. And it's funny because a lot of people are like, no, these aren't going to work. This one right here on the left was literally the Notes app on my iPhone. That is it. I wrote down my top 4 tips for getting photos that are not blurry anymore. So shutter speed, all this stuff, ISO tips, and it got 1,127 likes. And it also got a lot of saves because I guess apparently people wanted to save all that dense information in one go. So it's something new that a lot of people think like, oh, it's not going to work. And then I also take pictures of tweets. I'm not even actually very active on Twitter, but I use it because it looks cool and it has a little profile, your name and all that stuff. And I put some kind of inspiring, almost argumentative type comments about how, gear isn't always necessary if you don't have the skills for composition and lighting. And that got 1,000 likes, and it had a lot of shares because it was something that people was like, hey, look at this post, like don't focus too much on gear. So these tense value posts are very, you can also make infographics if you're a graphic designer or dabble in that kind of stuff. These posts are highly shareable and very quick saves. So that's one thing that I definitely encourage people to explore, to kind of break up the visual part of their content. This next type of post is a carousel post, and this is what I do a lot of heavy posting on. A lot of the content and audience that I built initially was based on carousel posts. And basically what these are using a maximum of all 10 slides on Instagram to maximize the amount of time that they're on their platform for an image-based post. But I actually go one further, and I put text on my post. I put infographics. I learned how to do very bad graphic design in 2020. I learned how to use a graphic design program, and all this stuff is self-taught. It's not the greatest, but I keep it simple so that I can communicate my messages using, diagrams and all that stuff. Because it's really my mission to teach people, and sometimes a photo doesn't do it. Sometimes a diagram will, or a video will. But kind of best practices when it comes to carousel posts is use all 10 slides. Even if you're just posting photos, which I'll share a pure photo-based post toward the end of this, use all 10 slides. If you can call a good story that starts with a really awesome photo and propels a story to kind of a really good closure and an engaging caption, That will do a lot better than sharing one photo. This is one thing that I encourage every photographer to do. If you do nothing that I teach you, just do this. Use all 10 photos, create a story, write the story out, end it with some type of open-ended discussion, or vote for the best photo. I guarantee you your post will do better moving forward instead of just sharing your best photo and keeping it consistent. Um, the good thing with carousel posts too is make sure you have a good hook, and that basically means your cover photo and your second photo need to be good, because sometimes if Instagram's algorithm doesn't get good response with your first photo, it will actually show the second photo. If you have a lot of people that post carousels on your feed, you'll notice that sometimes the second photo is being displayed first, and that's for that reason. And then the way that there's kind of a marketing concept called AIDA, awareness, interest, desire, and action. This is how I structure all my posts. So I start it with awareness, some type of problem or thing that people might want to learn, and I'll kind of drive the content value moving forward, which gives them basically kind of like the interest and keeps them interested in the post. And then toward the end, it's kind of desire. So like that information that they really want to have, that they want to save and all that stuff. And then action. So I give a literal call to action for my last slide. I actually don't use a photo. I have a call to action in my last one, and I tell people to save it, to leave a comment, something. I give them something to do, basically at the end. And then basically what you really want to focus on with these carousel posts is have some type of systematized structure. So if you're going to give tips, top 8 tips and go through the 8 tips, or a story. So propel the story just like a normal story would go. Like you introduce the character and the problem, and then you go through the journey, and then you have some type of resolve at the end. If you create some type of journey or story progression, you will get better engagement on that type of post. And again, the caption is everything. If you have a story, make it very engaging, put a lot of details, make it personal, share yourself or what happened. If you have a very high value educational post, create an alternative summary on your caption. Sometimes I'll create 8 tips, and then I'll rewrite the 8 tips in the caption just in case somebody reads better than viewing a photo. And then you also just want to try and take advantage of different media content. So video, audio, text, photos, the more you can mix it up, the better it will do. So here is an example of a educational carousel post. So here I have 2 strong like hook photos. So and I actually use text on all my posts because it kind of breaks through the monotonous hashtag feeds and whatnot. So the best Lightroom export settings for Instagram, and then I also say like if you want to minimize the bad effects of IG compression, because that's another problem that people want to really tackle. And I go through and lead with the interest of all the different value that they can get with different settings and whatnot, and then I leave it with a banger and I give the best practices. So most of the time people will save it on this part or they will share this part. That's usually what happens. And then I leave it with a call to action. I just say, save this for later. That's just what I do, just because I really think that it's valuable and they should remember to save it, and it really works. Let's see. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. Let's see. But we'll go through those questions after. And then here is an educational post for a client. So again, if you teach your client stuff, you want to teach them basically either how to be better clients, questions that they always ask you, or just things that you do well so that they can be attracted to what you do well. So in this case, I leave kind of like an inspirational, almost Pinteresty type of post, 8 bridal party group photo ideas. And I just go through 8 different types of poses, and I just give them names that I personally, they're not even official names. I just called it that, and I just save it for later. And this works to kind of both teach my peers inspiration ideas for how they pose their clients, but it also helps my clients understand how I work and what they can expect. So here is another one more about kind of like my process and approach, and I kind of walk through people how I'm composing images. And if you can think about swiping through, I'll show the image. So basically for the carousel posts, in this case, I'm basically walking through people kind of like my thought process and approach to taking a photo by kind of showing the photo and kind of drawing some diagrams after the fact to show them the leading lines of this type of composition approach that I have. And then the last one that I think a lot of people can incorporate very quickly is first just having a cover photo that kind of is game for the platform. So usually square or vertical works best. And I actually just put all the other subsequent posts in like white borders. That way I can post square, horizontal, or vertical posts. Photos in addition to that. And then I have a call to action at the end and just ask them like, hey, which image was your favorite, to drive some type of comments also. And then here's kind of like a multimedia carousel post. So in this one, I taught people kind of how to do this kind of single exposure, high dynamic range edit. And I kind of walk through people the different tips. And I also include video screen kind of records of my monitor. You can't see it on the presentation here, but if you go on my Instagram account, you can see that. And it kind of shows as it's going, it'll start playing and it'll show kind of like what you're supposed to do in Lightroom, zooming in and out. So if you have some type of screen record features, that's a very easy thing you can do to show some type of context around kind of like your editing process and all that stuff. So now we get to Instagram Reels. And this is really what the big value, the big powerful kind of algorithm opportunity that you can take advantage of right now is Instagram Reels are basically 15-second or 30-second short videos, and it's Instagram's answer to TikTok. Basically, it's the TikTok competitor, and they kind of take the same type of the content that does well on TikTok will also really do pretty well on Reels, and it has a very high chance to go viral. So basically, if you share a good Reel, it might blow up to, I had one that went almost 500,000 views, even though I had 20,000 followers on my account. And also, it also has a longer chance to be viewed past the day that you post it. I've had some Reels that were, stay stagnant for a little bit, and then they'll blow up like 1 week later. So usually with the feed posts, like the carousels and the single posts, those will kind of die out after 1 day or 2 days. But with Reels, you actually have the ability to kind of have a somewhat evergreen kind of piece of content. It's not searchable, but like how on YouTube where you can have an old video that gets views, the Reels will actually have that type of behavior as well. So the best practices when it comes to Reels is your first 2 seconds are crucial. You want to state some type of clear promise with on-screen text. So here you can see that I'm going to teach people how to do on-camera flash tips, or if you have a behind-the-scenes kind of scene, you can kind of write a catching hook or description about the challenge that you're going to take on in that scene, and make sure that it's very easy to read in 2 seconds. If you put a lot of text, then people won't be able to read it quickly. It's also, I don't really like showing my face, but it's proven that when I do, it does better. So show your face if you can, show the context of the scene, or just tease kind of like the final resulting photo so that you can show how it builds up to it and then show it again. And bonus tip, if you can incorporate some type of fast movement, some people like to block the camera and then take their phone away from it or something like that. If you can wave something in the air, when you're scrolling, you'll see that motion first, and it'll kind of prompt the person to kind of stop scrolling because it interrupts their kind of feed experience, so they can park and watch your reel. So some other best practices are the hook again. It's 2 to 3 seconds is kind of like where you really want to get people, and then the rest of the structure of the reel is really the last 10 seconds. You want to give some type of interest, propelling a story or giving constant value, and then if you want to end with a call to action, you can do that toward the end. And really, you just want to make it something that's highly shareable, highly valuable, or entertaining. But what you want to avoid doing is trying to do too much. So usually on my carousel post, I'll go very in depth. I'll do like 8 tips on a reel. I might just do 1 tip or like 2 very quick tips, or teach one thing and show a lot of examples rather than trying to teach a lot of things. I really want to simplify how you communicate. So once you start making reels, it might be hard at first, but once you start experimenting more, you'll get the hang of it and be able to kind of simplify it. And with the text, always try to keep on-screen text for any time you're going to like say anything, because a lot of people watch reels on mute. So you want to encourage them to unmute their phone, or if they can't hear, you want to make sure they can have some type of value they can take from your post. So keep some on-screen text and make sure it's short, so that play it back yourself and make sure you can read it at the pace that it's playing. And then if you do share kind of capture, or sorry, if you do share some type of steps or tips in the actual real on-screen text, I like to just rewrite it in the caption. That way, if it goes too fast, people can just open the more and read kind of the list at their own leisure as they're watching the real replay over and over, and that gets you actually more views. All right, so here's kind of like an educational reel I made. It's basically a 30-second kind of explanation of how to read the histogram on your camera. So this is something that I made. It just goes through the the histogram tones and talks about highlight and shadow clipping. And this one did pretty well. And then also, if you wanted to behind the scenes to kind of show your clients what you do or how you approach things, this is one of a GoPro footage that was on top of my camera where I was shooting with it like seeming like distracting people in front of my way, and I used them to kind of frame them to make a stronger photo. So this one did very well with my clients. And then you can also just create some type of like meme reel. So these are just screenshots from the reel itself, but usually they're 15 or 30 seconds. I kind of started off getting in my car, talking about like I'm ready for my shoot, and then kind of capitalizing on that experience that almost every photographer has to double check all their gear, checking if I forgot any SD cards. And this one got a few shares because a lot of people they do the same double check before their shoots. And then going into kind of like insight and approach for kind of like how you do your art. This one I did kind of like a double thing of like teaching new people and also just showing my clients kind of how I do compositions. This one I kind of explain subframing or frame within the frame and show kind of like tips as it goes through, but I'm actually showing I think about like 10 or 12 different examples of within a frame composition techniques. So now we get to stories. So stories are basically your way to kind of nurture and engage with your current audience. It doesn't really do a lot as far as your individual sharing of stories. It doesn't do a lot to grow your account. But what it does is it helps you to show yourself to your audience. So here you can see that here I polled my audience on kind of like what they kind of struggle with when it comes to photography. Here I tagged my client in the story, and then she actually reshared the post. So this is a good way to kind of share your clients in photos and kind of control the edit, because a lot of people say like their clients add filters and stuff like that. I found that if you post your story and share and mention them in the story, that will give a better organic share of the photo versus relying on the audience size of your client. Instead, it's just spreading your name to them in their stories, which actually gets better views, at least for my clients. And then you can also ask people questions or let them provide you questions so you can have content ideas. If you have your client, ask your clients what they struggle with and you can answer it to build credibility. If you're teaching your peers what do they struggle with, so you can come up with ideas of what content to create. And I also just encourage people to lean into whatever makes them different, share about their life. Here you can see that I have my kid just sleeping on my shoulder, and a lot of my clients and peers and my audience know that I have kids mostly from my Instagram story. So, and that helps me to connect with a lot of people. That's how me and Derek got started talking about being dads and having sons and all that stuff. So it helps for you to connect with other people in a more meaningful way. So again, show your personality, experiment. It expires in 24 hours. So if you really mess up, you can either delete it or just let it expire on its own. Make use of the different types of features. So there's stickers on stories, so you can create polls, you can ask questions, but anytime you include one of these engagement stickers, it helps you build up points to get more story views. And just, again, nurture your audience and give them a way to get involved, and so that you can also interact back with them. And it also helps if you have more than 10,000 followers, you can direct traffic outside of your account. So you can, if you have a YouTube channel or you have a website, if you have a consultation sign up or whatever, that's what you can do. And I did want to share this kind of like warm lead hack that I learned. Basically, if you create a poll and you make it so that the options aren't just yes or no, but they're two different options. Like, do you like shooting at the beach? Do you want to do your engagement session at the beach or in the city? And they'll answer. And then what you'll do is you'll actually have a list of active users who answered, and you can message them right away. So if you can say like, hey, what do you like best about shooting in the beach? right? And then if they are engaged, then you can talk about that, and it can create some type of warm business engagement that would have been different than cold messaging people like, hey, do you need a photographer? It creates some type of understanding about their position. And or if you're creating content, you can seed more ideas. Like in this case, I could ask them like, hey, what about learning to level up your consistency and quality of lighting do you struggle with the most? Like I can go deeper. So now we get to Instagram TV. And this is basically how I share kind of longer form content, anything that's longer than 1 minute. What works really well is just telling a story or sharing some type of longer tutorial. I also use them to host all of my Instagram live replays. As you can see, very own B&H's Derek was he did a street photography kind of IG live discussion with me. I also use it to direct traffic outside of my account. So on IGTV, you can include a link in the description of your video. So I have I share a lot of my YouTube videos as well as my podcast content, which talks a lot about Instagram and social media and stuff like that, which is the Focus, Shoot, Develop podcast if you're interested in learning about that. And then I did want to go kind of cover how this actually works once you put it all together. So again, we kind of covered where do you get kind of people to see your content. And the non-followers will see it on their Explore tab, Reels, story resharing, or getting it shared to them through the direct messaging, guest posts on other accounts, or people mentioning your account or post, and then hashtags. And then from there, this kind of brings us to what I call like the Instagram conversion funnel. So basically, non-followers will see your content. So they'll see it on Explore Reels or shared posts or something. And from there, they're going to tap into your account, and then they're going to look at your bio, read that, and they're going to check out your feed. They're just going to look at it. And then they might tap in a few posts, and then they're going to decide, do I want to follow you? Is it consistent? Is it valuable? Is there something that I need to be following later? They'll decide to follow you, and from there, they'll get all your new posts and stories and all that stuff. Assuming that you're doing a great job to create engaging content, it will be shown to them. And then from there, you'll be able to kind of create some relationships. They might comment on stuff. They will DM you. Or maybe in your stories, you'll share an outside link. And that is where you kind of get the conversion. Either if you're trying to build your fan base, you're trying to drive people to your YouTube channel, or you're trying to get business leads, you can, provide your contact form and all that stuff. And that's when you get the conversion of someone that's actually somebody to you. Maybe it's your client, maybe it's a friend that you collaborate with, or just a loyal fan that loves your content and is learning, and may support you down the road. So this is kind of how it works. So instead of just posting things just to expect people to follow you, this is actually how my content is designed. So I have very high traffic reels and posts that are hashtag optimized and all that stuff that people will share. And then I have a lot of value and consistency in my account, and that drives people to just follow for more stuff. And then I answer my DMs all the time, so that's something that a lot of people ask me questions on there, and I'll create friendships. Like me and Derek met on Instagram because of COVID, and those are how those types of relationships are made. So how are we doing on time, Derek? I do have some other quick fire stuff to go through.
Go for it. If you need to go
All
over
right.
a couple minutes, definitely
For
do.
sure, for sure. So now we'll go kind of like the quick fire things that you can do to kind of breathe life back into your Instagram account. So first is optimize your bio. So this isn't a hard or fast rule, but these are the things that I take into account, so that when people just look at your bio, they understand what they can get specifically from your Instagram. So you want to have your face or some type of, show yourself on your profile pic. That's a given. A lot of people like to put a keyword like San Francisco wedding photographer, but I really urge people to put your first name at the very least, so that when you DM people, it doesn't just say San Francisco wedding photographer is DMing you. It says like Reggie is DMing you. So that's something that I really want people to do, because sometimes I don't know who's DMing me, if they have their city wedding photographer or city photographer. That's a good tip. Change the title if you have a business or creator account, and then kind of like you have some very limited character spaces that you can do for your profile. So this is what I do. You can do it differently, but this is what I think is very useful for mine. Is I tell people who I am and what I do, or like the most notable thing that I do, and that's me being a Fujifilm ex photographer. And then I also give yourself some type of credibility, how many things you've done or shot or whatever. If you won awards, that kind of thing. In this case, I'm teaching people, and I want to show people that I've started where they are and got to where I am by working my way up and being self-taught. So I tell people that I'm an engineer who turned into a wedding photographer, so that they don't have to be intimidated that I'm some industry crazy expert. I was somebody that went from a day job to a pro, and maybe they want to follow me to learn more. And then a lot of things that people miss here is they don't tell people what they can find specifically by following that person on Instagram. Not what you do as your business, but what are you going to get from this account specifically? Are you going to get daily photos from my street photography travels, or like some, or the different fashionable people that I met in kind of like the industry, or in my case, it's bite-sized tips to level up your photos. It's very clear what you're going to get when you follow me. And a lot of people miss out on this. You want to create a specific line that's just showing what people are going to get from your Instagram if you're going the route of creating value, or like, process photos of my landscape photography, something like that. And then you also want to have some type of call to action or some type of description of what your link is. And then you're going to have a link. So you can have a link tree, you can have somewhere to go, a contact form, your website, portfolio, whatever you want. So that's kind of like the bio optimization. And then one thing I really urge everyone to do as photographers is document your process in more than just photos. You're already good at documenting photos, but try to expand it a little more. Take behind the scenes, take test photos, show unculled photos, take your notes, your planning documents, your sketches, record your screen while you're working or editing, use your phone to just take a quick snapshot of the environment, or a quick video of the environment. You have a GoPro, or even if you have budget, hire an assistant to film behind the scenes content, and just like writing down your thoughts and sharing them later, or your wins, your losses, what you've learned, what your mood that day. I really highly recommend this book called Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. He has a very good kind of mindset shift and approach to not just being creative, but sharing your process of creativity with your audience, your fan base, and different ways to do that. I highly recommend reading that book. And then hashtags. A lot of people like wondering about hashtags. As far as hashtags goes, the goal is really to be on the top page, not the recent page. The top page is where people will find you. The recent page gets flooded very quickly. A big warning, though, is make sure you use hashtags that are appropriate for your account size and engagement rate. So what you want to do is, if you're like 10,000 or less, you want to be using hashtags that have like 10,000 or less too, or close to that. A good way to test it is look at the top page and look at like the first like 12 photos and see if your engagement numbers are similar. So if the amount of likes are similar in the ballpark, that's okay. If it's way above yours, then you really don't want to be wasting your time, because you're going to be flooded out of that one. The only difference is Reels. So Reels will get a top 1 and 4 spot, and they'll prioritize Reels over everything. So here you can see that I have a Fujifilm lens in this Reel that I have, and I tagged Sony photographer, and I still somehow came on top. So you can almost poach other brands' hashtags, which is what I do, because I teach very valuable content regardless of the photography brand. So I put it on Canon, Sony, Lumix, all that stuff, because I'm teaching good stuff. So I feel like any photographer, not just Fujifilm photographers, need to learn it. But that's a big opportunity, is if you can figure out and capitalize on Reels. As a business, focus on Reels in your industry, hashtags in your industry, or your local areas. That's another way to do it. So San Francisco wedding photographer is something that I would do if I was more gearing toward client-based Reels. Again, with hashtags, it's kind of a weird thing, because you experiment, you optimize, you find the right sizes, and then literally just forget it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's literally like the weather. Like if you have a photo shoot and the weather is nice, and the hashtags pop off, that's good. If they don't, you still got to do your job or reschedule or whatever. It's just, you just forget it. So they don't always work. But if you're very serious about trying to optimize them so they work, I highly recommend this website called flick.tech. It is paid. And I only paid for it when I spent like 1 month optimizing my hashtags, and then I canceled it and kind of just forget it after that. Some tips about comments: ask open-ended questions, what, how, etc. If somebody says like, oh, I really like this post, you can just ask, oh, what about this post did you like the best? What did you learn the most? anything like that? Which what did you like about the photo? If they voted, if you asked them to vote for photos and they picked like, oh, what about the photo? Did you made you vote for that one? Think about ways to kind of generate discussions. Reply to comments if you have the time to do it. And one cool hack, it's not really a hack, but it's an interesting thing you could do is when you post a new photo or a new post, you can go to your previous post and like the people who commented on it, and they'll get a little notification, and that might prompt them to go check out your account, and then they'll see the new post. But at the end of the day, just be a human and start a discussion. Just talk to people, and really just try to remember to prompt some type of comment in your original post caption to generate some type of comment, even if it's something as simple as like, what was your favorite image? So my last parting words again with Instagram is be social. It is a social network. It is not a portfolio website. You got to remember that. So try and forget your ego when you're just trying to create an audience around your work and do the bare minimum. Like there has to be some exchange if you want to be successful on the platform, and that really comes to providing value. And when you're going through trying to grow your account, a big mentality that I've adopted that was really helpful is just being very experimental about everything. Sometimes I just tried something totally different off the wall. If it worked, then I'm like, hey, this will work moving forward. Or if it didn't work, then I learned what doesn't work specifically for my audience or wasn't optimized for the platform. It doesn't mean it's a hit to my creativity. It just didn't work for the platform. I can still post it on my website. I can still create it for myself. It's just you got to focus on these are things that are only going on Instagram, and you have to game it for that platform. And at the end of the day, just focus on your why. That's what's going to keep you going. If it's really your goal to grow on Instagram and reach more people, your why is going to help you focus your efforts and really tailor everything that you're doing. And before we get to questions, just want to talk about where else you can find me. Again, Instagram at Reggie B Photo. I'm also making a lot of long form YouTube content. And I also have a podcast where we talk a lot about social media stuff. So if you're new to Clubhouse, if you want Instagram stuff, you want to know how to do Instagram stories, I host that with somebody that I collaborate with, IRMD Photo, who also creates a lot of educational Instagram content. And then I do have a new photography bootcamp that I launched. You can find that link in my Instagram bio. And that is pretty much it. Hopefully some people have questions. And yeah.
Well, we definitely have questions. That was a ton of information, as I expected. Man. I already knew what I was getting.
Yeah.
And I think I've asked you enough questions, and we've had enough conversations about this, where it's like, I think if something happened to you and your video cut out, I think I could have hosted the rest of that. I think I could have gone. Now, I do want to start by saying this, and we've had a lot of conversations, and one thing, my major takeaway from our conversations on this topic are that it's important to point out, because I do see some of the comments relating to this. Instagram is not for everyone. You're not
Yes.
here saying this recipe is going to work for you. This recipe is going to work for everybody. It's like going into an engineering group on Facebook and trying to sell a sewing machine.
Yep.
No, you want to go to a sewing group on Facebook to sell a sewing machine. So Instagram has its own demographic. It has things it's great for. YouTube has its own demographic. Facebook has its own demographic. I think that's been studied. It's been shown. Not everybody's going to grow. Not everybody's going to want to use Instagram in the way that you're presenting. So I think it's important for people to know that before we kind of dive into the questions, that you're not saying this is an instant fix for everyone. There's some people that want to use Instagram to go on and look at memes, post pictures they like, go look
Yep.
at pictures they like, and they're completely content to do that.
Yep.
I'm
Yeah, and I
correct in
think
saying that?
I think one of the things too that I don't know where he got this. One of my mentors, Chris Doe, that guy that reposted my post, he's my kind of like business mentor. He said like social media is kind of like the watering hole in like the wilderness. It's like each different type of animal or different client or different audience or different creative is going to gather at a specific type of watering hole. So you have to understand that Instagram is only for specific people. It's only going to thrive for specific types of photographers or creatives, or maybe YouTube is where you need to be, or maybe Pinterest is where all the brides are going. You know what I mean? You have to understand that you can't just force one type of social media if those people that you're looking for are not gathering there. Like maybe Reddit is your thing. Like you have to really understand. That's why part of like the beginning discussion I said is find your audience and your why, and then target that type of social media that's going to propel that. In this case, the main reason why I started teaching on Instagram was because I knew photographers were on the platform, but everyone was using YouTube to teach. And I was like, why can't we put the teaching on Instagram? And that's where I kind of ran with it.
Interesting. Now, one of the topics that people are asking about is how you post to Instagram. There's
Hmm.
various applications, and you can post through Lightroom. There's applications where you can post to multiple social media sites at once on a timer.
Yep.
How do you post? Do you do it just from your phone, just from the app, or what do you recommend?
So I have a post on my Instagram about this, but I use something called Facebook Creator Studio. So if you have a business account, you can actually schedule and post single image posts, IGTV posts, and carousels all from your computer and schedule them. So you don't have to. Basically, I export them either from Lightroom or my graphic design software, Adobe XD. It's actually a UX UI software, but I use it to do lightweight design. I export all the slides or the posts on there, and then you can just straight upload them without having to Dropbox it or AirDrop it to your phone or all that weird stuff. And you can schedule on there, put the hashtags, tag everybody on there. That's generally how I post it. If I did something, late or whatever, then I'll just post through my phone. I try to schedule more often, but I haven't been good at it. But I've tried things like Later, Planoly, Hootsuite, but I didn't really like those. So I either use the internal one that's created by Facebook or just post it on my own, because part of my value is being able to be available to field questions when it comes in. So I actually like being present when I post it.
Mhm. Now, I will say I took your advice on paying attention to the analytics and when is the
Hmm.
right time to post. And it's like I've been out with other photographers that are a lot better at Instagram than I am. And it's like we'll be out hanging out and it's like 12 p.m. hits and it's like, hold on, I gotta post. Hold on, I gotta do this right now. So there is something to be said because I have seen when I do stick
Hmm.
to a schedule, when your following is on, it does work. It's
Yeah, yeah.
tried and true. So I can say that Reggie's tips do work if that's the route you want to go and you do listen to them. Now we had some questions come in. Teresa is asking why on the carousels do you have to use all 10 or do you have to use all 10? Is that a recommendation or is it something that's really going to make a difference?
It's gonna make a difference if you can get people to get all the way to the end. So the one thing is if you post 10 and you can never get people to get past number 2 or 3, it's gonna be considered almost similar to like a website bounce. Like it's not relevant. So that's where I would say, like, if you can't get people to engage, and okay, that's fine. But what you really want to build is understanding, like, why are they dropping off, and get them till the end. Because the reason why is because, again, the algorithm wants people to spend more time on your post, on your content. The more time they spend there, they're saying, hey, this is relevant to Teresa, right? She likes this post, so I'm gonna feed more of these posts the next time this creator makes it. It's training a machine. Like, ultimately, it's a machine that's taking data of all this stuff, and one of the metrics it's really using is how much time is this consumer looking at this creator's content and making a pair. So everyone's algorithm is different to that person. So um, if I follow a photographer and I always engage with their stuff, it's gonna match me to that person and maybe not show me everyone else. So that's what you have to understand, is just because you matched it with one person, it might not do well for the other. That's why also finding the audience that's all kind of similar will help you do better too. So yeah, so you don't have to use 10. I've seen people who use like 6 or 4 or whatever. But my thing is, if you can, for example, like a wedding, and people create blogs all the time. If you can just condense your blog down to 10 and pick the strongest images or the ones that propel the story, what's stopping you from doing that versus 6 or 5? If you have it, if it's not the strongest image, keep it toward like the middle and end it with the second to last one being the strongest, the first 2 or 3 being the strongest, and then someone's going to just kind of just by habit just go through it anyways, as long as it's not something that puts them off to just leave the post.
Mhm. I mean, it's like it's added value, like you talk
Yeah.
about. People want to get something. So if I can come to your post and get an entire story instead of just one random picture, like
Yeah.
99% of your feed is doing, it's more reason
Yeah.
to go there.
Yeah, and
All
I think
right.
part of the thing too is on my content, I'll brainwash people to go all the way to the end by saying there's gonna be 7 tips. So they're like 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going. There's like some psychology behind it. So even if you say something like I can't believe what happened to the at the end of this wedding, and they see it's propelling chronologically, they're probably just gonna try to go to the end. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have to think about it that way. So it's it could be thought of as manipulation, but again, if you're actually believing in what you do, you believe in the work that you do, the clients that you serve, the content you're creating is supposed to be in their benefit to either connect with or show them what they can have at their own wedding if they hire you and you do a good job. But, it's all that stuff. It's one way to think that you're sacrificing yourself, but it's a tool. So if you want to use it to do things that you want to do, there's a way to do it.
Now, if I could just teach my sister-in-law to not post 20 pictures on 20 separate posts would be good. Now, Stephen is asking about the algorithm in particular, and Stephen wants to know, we hear all this talk about the algorithm. How do
Mhm.
you know when it changes? Is it like an actual verified thing, or is it like the wizard behind the curtain?
Um, so it changes actually quite frequently, and it actually changed maybe like 2 weeks ago. And it's kind of frustrating. And the only way to really know is to kind of I asked my other like Instagram power users, like, did you notice something? Like, for example, there's been something weird with Instagram story where it just dropped. Like I used to get like 3, 4,000 views on stories, and now I'm realizing I have to do a lot of work to get it to be more than 1,000, which happened out of nowhere. And I verified that with two other people. So like, okay, we understand that something changed. And then it's kind of one of those things. If you're on the forefront, you try to figure it out, or you're trying to just hang on tight and just ride the wave. Sometimes it goes back up. Sometimes it's the new normal. In this case, like the likes and engagement for large accounts, the new normal is like it takes a lot to get a lot of likes now. Um, Before it used to be like people with 50,000 subscribe or followers would get like 20,000 likes. Now they just get like 50 if they're not gaming the algorithm correctly. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you don't really know, but it's because they don't communicate it. That's the one thing is Instagram doesn't communicate it to everybody, but it's just like the people that are in the know and that are looking for it will notice the trends. So if you follow me and you say, hey, did you notice something change? I will tell you point blank, yeah, this thing changed. Like uh, everything kind of took a little dive after December for some reason. And another way to look at it too is if you have a long term analytics tracker. So I use this thing called IG Blade. It's free as long as you just like log in and you favorite your account, it will keep tracking it over time. And seeing the long term trajectory will help you understand the dips because it's like if you keep doing the same thing consistently, you'll notice when there's a severe drop. And it's like, okay, something changed here. And then I'll ask my friend Ira, I'm like, hey, did you have a drop in this time too? And they're like, yeah. It's like, okay, well, I know that I'm not crazy. And then Instagram just did something and probably everyone is experiencing the same thing too. They don't just target specific people. Like everyone falls and rises at the same time if they're all following the same kind of pattern. So I know that's kind of a roundabout answer. It's you don't really know, but it's the best way to know is track the trends, like long-term trends of your analytics, and then also just literally just ask somebody else who is more in the successful at the platform to see if they've noticed something too.
Mm. And I will say, Reggie, for those that haven't followed Reggie or don't know of him prior to now, he's been meticulous about setting a schedule, waking up at 5 a.m. He is stringent with sticking to his schedule, creating content, viewing his analytics, studying. This isn't something where you can just, it's not the scratch off lottery ticket version of becoming famous
Yeah,
on Instagram. He does the
exactly.
work, he
Yeah.
studies, you put in the time.
Yeah. And I think one of the things too is people say like, "Oh, that Chris Do post, like you just got lucky." It's like I was actually creating tutorial content for 5 months before I blew up. And the reason why people are following me is because they'll look back and like, oh, there's so much value consistently. So it's some of the things you have to do consistently without anybody noticing, and then you'll get your big break. Um, but it's another thing too is I'm an engineer. I'm used to seeing the numbers. I like experimenting and all that stuff. I think the biggest thing that I've let go of is perfection. It's social media. You can have a typo and no one will care. Like no one will really care. You can post a photo with his mistake and it's just social media. Like that's where people need to understand it's not your portfolio anymore. So you can make mistakes, you can be human. You can literally comment like I made a mistake on here, thanks for catching it, man. Like I've done that before and people just don't really care. Because a lot of people put a lot of serious aesthetic weight to it and I think it's not that platform anymore.
Now, before we get to our next question, we have a question from Shoddy NYC asking if you're going to have that Shoddy NYC guy back on your Instagram live anytime soon. I think the views were way down on that one, so I'm going to answer that one for Reggie.
Yeah.
I don't think you were doing it for his algorithm there. So
We'll try to get him over 10K, but yeah, if you
there we
want to,
go.
Shotty.
Now, Elizabeth is asking about hashtags. How
Mhm.
important are hashtags? This is one of those things where I think as long as Instagram's been a thing, hashtags have been, that was the dominating conversation. Do
Yeah.
they work? Are they proven to work? If you don't do them, are you cutting your feet off?
So there's two. I have two answers to this. For photo posts or carousel posts, hashtags are pretty frustrating, but they will help you get traction on the good days. So it's one of those things where on a good day you'll get traction. On a bad day, it might not pop off, but then sometimes on a really good day, then they cut off the hashtags. Like one time I had my most popular post that happened when I was still smaller, and the hashtags didn't go off, and I was like, why? This should have worked, but it just didn't. And it's one of those things where if you worry too much about it, you'll just go crazy. But I think what's really important is just optimizing it for your account size, making sure that the other top posts in the top page are relevant to your account. So if you're consistently hitting a couple hundred likes, make sure your hashtag that you're targeting are around that, like 150 to 400. You don't want to go post your photo on street photography if you just have 2 followers and only 5 people are liking your post. You're not going to blow up on street photography. That's just how it works. It's going to want to rank you amongst the top people performers of that hashtag. So if you notice mine, I'm still using relatively small hashtags. The only time I start reaching for big hashtags is reels, because you only need to rank yourself within the reels that are posted for that page, not the photo post. So it depends on. So basically, reels has its own separate hashtag algorithm that reacts to the hashtag. So if street photography only on reels only has a certain amount of views, then and you're getting close to that, then you might be able to compete on the reels platform itself.
Okay. Now, going back to the algorithm thing, I'm trying to think of the app. What was the other photography app that popped up a couple years ago, and it was supposed to be like Instagram, but just for serious photographers? I
It's a
can't.
disco? No, I don't know.
Nah, I
I
can't
think I
think of
know
the
you're talking
name.
about the other one. It had like a minimal UI, but it's
Yeah, the name will probably come to me after we
yeah.
log off tonight. But the algorithm on that, the idea was it was like a strike while the iron's hot kind of algorithm, where if I
Mhm.
post something and I get 10 likes within the first 30 seconds, my post is hot. I keep going until, say, I hit a period where my likes go down. So it's almost like a stock market kind of thing, like where
Mhm.
when you're on a run, they're going to keep showing your picture on more people's pages.
Yeah.
Once you hit a cold streak, okay, we're going to pull you down and we're going to show you the less. Is there anything like that that is like a real time factor? I've heard that, commenting, responding to comments, liking people's comments, does that have a real time effect? Because I've noticed that I've had certain posts where, you know, they're doing very well, and I see a lot of likes coming at once. Like I'll hit like 11 likes. I'm joking. Um, but where you'll see everything stack up
Yeah.
quick, and it's like, well, hey, is this like something happening that I'm not aware of? Is it a real time thing, or is it more drawn out over a longer period of time? Does
I
that make sense?
Yeah, it does. A lot of people will say like, "Oh, there's this 30-minute rule." It's just coincidence. It's not really a rule, but the way the ripple effect is real time. So, for example, if you post and it shows it to say like 3% of your audience and it just hits hard, right? Then they're all going to like it very quickly, assuming they're awake and on the platform and got the notification or whatever. Then it's going to show it to more if those people are also on, and then they're going to like it. So it seems like it's time oriented. It's not really. Um, it's just a matter of not coincidence. You're optimizing yourself for your audience and also the platform to share it out. So I think in that sense it works. I think one of the things that does help is if somebody comments, you can reply back. Like if you can stay on around the first 30 minutes, half hour or hour, and reply to the people that comment and ask them something. Just connect with them because they're taking the time to talk to you. So might as well just talk to them back, right? Um, that will help kind of drive engagement because it keeps track of the comments. And then, but with those posts, they will die off in a little bit. Like usually after a day or 2 days, they kind of drop off for the most part. But with reels, for some reason, they will pick those, like their algorithm will kind of like pick things randomly and try them out like a week later. Because I've had posts where they got like 10,000 views, they kind of dropped off, and then like a week later it just shot up to 250,000 views. I'm like, I don't know why this works, but I think what they're doing is a lot of people don't post image posts on weekends, so they try to front load reels in people's feeds. So me and my friend have coined this like the weekend reels push. That's what we call it. Like we just, it's like, hey, I'm trying to set this one up to be in position for the reels push. So like I'll post a reel on like Wednesday or Thursday. So it kind of like, I don't, this is all speculation because I don't know how it actually works, but so it will kind of like, what you call it, index it for the weekend, and by Friday or Saturday sometimes they'll push it up a little bit, and I'll reshare it to my story to give it some type of like push. So you'll notice if you do end up following me, I'll post reels on the weekends and saying like, hey, this one's almost at 20,000, and then people will push it over 20,000. So it's one of those things where stories will help kind of get some traction on a post too. Well, that's another thing I forgot to mention. When you make a post, just share it to your story. Because that's another way to get some forced eyeballs on it if you want that.
What about the old liking your own picture?
I don't.
Are you a fan of it?
I haven't done that in a while. No.
I remember that used to be the thing where it's like,
Yeah.
really? You like your own picture? It's like,
It's
well,
like giving
yeah, I
yourself
like
a high five after you take a photo. Like, oh, that was dope. You just
there you go. And thanks to Bicycle Load, who points out the app was 500px. Couldn't think of the name, so
Oh yeah.
our viewers got us on that one. But a good question came up about Linktree.
Mhm.
And I guess while we're talking about Linktree, number one, are you a fan of Linktree? And two, how much weight do you put on driving or using your Instagram to drive traction to your other sites? So I know you have a YouTube. Is that
Mhm.
a big key player in driving traffic, interlocking the two sites?
I would say as far as passive traffic, it's I don't get a lot of passive traffic through my link tree just because it just really depends on what people are looking for. People kind of stumble upon it, but the times that it gets really a lot of use is when I actually tell people there's something in there. So in my stories or my posts, they say link in bio for this thing, that people will drive to it. And Linktree has the analytics and all that stuff, so I think that's pretty cool. I don't think it's required though. There's a lot of free platforms that will do the same thing, and I used to actually do it on Squarespace landing page for a long time. But what you can't do on Squarespace landing pages, you can't change the website on a phone. And sometimes I was like on the road and I needed to change my site, my link tree to put my newest YouTube video. So I just bought Linktree just because I can change it all from my phone. That's like literally the only reason. So there's not a hard and fast like, oh, you have to use this service. I literally have it for convenience because sometimes my kid's napping and I can't run to my computer to change a URL to be relevant to a story that I want to share.
Mhm.
So that's where I'll do that. And also, I think in combination with the swipe up that I have on when you hit 10,000, those are two good ways to drive traffic. But in general, it's one of those things where if you don't tell people what's in there, they won't know. So like if like for example, a lot of people like, oh, you have a YouTube. Like I've been trying a million things to tell people I have a YouTube. They still don't know. Whereas there's other guys like other extra photographer John Branch. He posts zero content on Instagram and he grows literally because he has a YouTube and he's driving traffic to it. So those are two different approaches, but I think for me, it's like having that line right above the link. If you can utilize that to tell people what's actually in that thing, like if you have free presets, if you want to have a coaching session or you have a consult call, like tell them what's there. And then if you have a whole link tree, at least tell them what's the most important thing that you want to share with them. And then they'll see that there's more stuff in there.
I think you just have to have Jonas Rask tell everyone that you have a YouTube and you're going to hit a million subs within a month,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah.
That's the key. Now, you kind of went where I wanted to go, and that's the swipe up. And for
Hmm.
people who aren't just trying to become an influencer because it's a status thing, for people who, a lot of people want to become they want to get that K behind their follower account. They want
Yeah,
to hit
yeah.
10,000
Yeah,
subscribers
yeah.
just for the swipe up feature because people know that most people aren't going to leave the app. They want stuff
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Once you drive traffic elsewhere, you lose people. And that swipe up is such a key thing. Is there anything that you recommend for people who don't have 10,000 followers to get, for stuff that they would normally use in a swipe up
Hmm.
to get that same effect?
So you can get the same effect if you use IGTV video. So on IGTV, if you go to the description, you can actually place a link and that will be clickable. And when you post an IGTV video to your actual story, it lets you swipe up. So it's kind of a one more step. So basically, if you have, say, a new YouTube video and you want people to go to the link, what you would do is create a little teaser video, like 1 minute and 30 seconds or something, and then you'd say like, hey, you'll put the little teaser clip, and at the end say like, check the link for the full video, and then they'll tap it, and then they could go in there. And then the reason why they had to swipe up is to get from your story to the full video, if that makes sense. That's like the best hack for someone other than 10K to have a hot link and a swipe up from stories.
Okay. Well, Reggie, I want to thank you again, man. I know Reggie's got a huge shout out to Reggie's wife. It cannot be easy being
Yeah,
your
yeah.
wife. You're constantly, busy doing your thing, for the benefit of all of us out here. So huge thank you to your wife once again, she's probably chasing the two rugrats around.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna let you get back to your family, but a huge thank you to you for joining us with all in your knowledge. Huge thank you to Fujifilm and the Fujifilm family for sponsoring this, and to all of our viewers who joined in as usual. Now, if you guys don't follow him, Reggie B Photo on Instagram, and definitely I'm gonna say this here. I don't pull any weight, but go check out his YouTube.
Thank you,
If you
thank
don't
you.
subscribe to him on YouTube, definitely subscribe to him on YouTube. It's perfect. I tell people all the time, it's perfect at bite-size information, and it really, you don't have to spend a lot of your day when you go on Reggie's feed. You can go in there for 30 seconds and get more information out of it than talking to me for an hour. So go do that, Reggie.
Yeah.
It's so great to have you on, man. I'm
Of
sure I'll see
course,
you
man. Thank you so much.
hey, always, man. I'll see you in the DMs or in Slack or YouTube or somewhere. But thank you again. Thank you to Fujifilm. Thank you to all of our viewers. Special shout out to Shadi for harassing us in here. We will catch y'all next time on another rendition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Y'all have a good night.